Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next installment of Azure Cloud Talk. I'm your host, Alec Harrison, here with a Brianless episode, but we have special guest Naveen Krishnan, Solution Architect at Microsoft in the AI unit. How's it going?
Hey Alex, how are you? It's glad to meet you and your audience. Let's see how what we have with AI to discuss today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Totally will. Before we get too deep into that, you want to give a little bit of your background to the group? How did you end up at Microsoft? Have you been there a while? And kind of what has your path looked like in tech? How'd you get excited and get into it?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah. So it's my journey is a little interesting. So I finished my college or engineering at with electronics and communication, and I did a 6 month course where it teaches me all Microsoft tech stack 15 years back, like .NET and ADO and other ASPs and other stuff. And
Mhm.
after finishing those 6 months, I joined a small startup company back in India and I stayed there for a year, then moved to another startup company, worked there for another. So that's a product company. We develop products for Mercedes Benz and other manufacturers out there in Europe and North America. So that's what we did. And I stayed there for 2 years and then I moved to Infosys. At Infosys, I was in India for 2 years and then they shipped me here to US. In 2015, I'm in US. I work for PepsiCo. I work for Morgan Stanley, JPMC, Capital One, CBS, Rite So these are the enterprises whom I work with. I help them design their on-prem as well as distributed systems on cloud. So that's where I started. I did a lot of migrations. I built migration factory for cloud. So I did several things in terms of migration when I was at Infosys, and I was technical architect at the time, and then I joined Microsoft. At Microsoft, I joined as a apps engineer, and I stayed there for 2 years, and then I became a cloud solution architect. Even though I had a cloud solution architect at the time when I joined, but I had to choose that role because that was more opted for me, and then I moved to this role. And here, I'm here for it's more than 1.5 years now, and it's going good. I started with cloud, but then AI got uh, a boom, and then I said, why not I try AI? And then slowly I got into AI, and from day one, maybe right when it got out, when ChatGPT got out, from day one, I got into AI and did so many other things. I started writing blogs on AI, and then I did started doing podcasts on AI, and that hit my interest. And recently, I'm enrolled into my master's with AI, so that's coming in so as well.
That's awesome. So you've kind of gotten the practical and you're going back to get the actual more traditional education on AI as well. But what's that major? Is it really an AI major or is it like a data
Yeah,
science major?
it's at University Austin, and it's major masters in artificial intelligence. I think that's where you can get masters, especially in artificial intelligence. I believe
Okay.
so. Others like you have to do masters in computer science, and then you will specialize in artificial intelligence. But here the core is completely artificial intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen more and more universities kind of switching to that.
Mhm.
There's even one near me that has a whole BA, like an undergrad degree in just artificial intelligence. And it's weird because there's a lot of the kind of like the social impact courses and a lot less programming than I thought with. So it'd be like you'd graduate and you'd only have to take like one Java class or one C sharp class. And I'm like, seems weird that you could be, I guess your curriculum then mostly is Python or R. And it's like, okay, well, it's similar to a data science degree then in
Mhm.
that standpoint and not as, I wouldn't equate it as similar as a programming, but I think a master's course kind of is in my mind where I would see the perfect marrying there because it's like, okay, I got my practical, CS degree. I can write the code. Now I'm doing the building on top of it because I was working with somebody and it was interesting because it was like they knew a lot of these really advanced AI topics, but then it was like,
Mhm.
okay, we're gonna write a for loop or a while loop or something. It was just like it took a minute for them to catch on to like the basic code stuff.
That's right.
Um, but yeah, that's really cool and exciting. It sounds like your journey was similar to mine too. Like I started in Azure and just because like we needed to build a solution in Azure and I just graduated from college. So I was like, what's the difference between reading textbooks and technical manuals? Like, not a lot. Like, they both are just as exciting. I would say Azure's a little more because at least it's where my interest is in technology instead of like a random textbook a professor makes you read. But then just trying to keep up in Azure, it was like AI this, AI that, AI, AI, AI. I feel like that's all people are saying anymore. And that's kind of where I've been just trying to keep up and as a byproduct, learning a bunch of AI there. I'm kinda curious, what's the difference between a cloud engineer at Microsoft and a solution architect? What are the different job like, is a cloud engineer are you building cloud products or what's the differences there where you're doing there?
No, yeah, cloud engineering will be more of hands-on cloud. It seems like you create your infrastructure scripts and you roll that out, and you will be focusing more on how to do and certainly not how to do. Like you'll be focused on more of doing, right? You will help the team who does
Mhm.
the implementation, or you will be with them during their migrations, cut over, and you will take care of any of their performance issues. You will go deep. Like it's like double clicking the team itself. Like if you are supporting SRE team, then you'll have to be with there throughout this SRE process and other stuff. So that's how the engineering job was more about. And you
Mhm.
create a lot of open source repository where you create some templates which will be helpful for some other people out there in the community. So that's what I do at cloud engineering. But this solutions architect is more of how to, like how to and who to kind of role, like how you do this, what's the best practice, and how do you optimize your cost, and how do you be secure, especially, and how can you be secure, and how can you do deals and other stuff. So like designing systems around that. And apart from that, you do a lot of other activities, right? You create some blogs, or you write some stories like how you did this or how you approach this problem or things like that. So that's the difference what I see from both the roles.
Gotcha. So you're kinda like a step up now. So instead of "Hey, we need, I don't know, a VP or a VNet in Azure that connects to our app service." Now you're the guy who says, "You probably want a VNet because of this reason, that reason, and here's how you optimize cost," and
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, that's cool. I'm kinda curious, you said you kinda stumbled into AI. What has been your I guess let's start at the first level. Do you think the AI is overhyped? Do you think we'll see it slow down, or kind of what's your first general take on just AI with what you're seeing day to day?
No, my personal take is it's not overhyped is what I say strongly. That's because I have seen it, and then I have touched it all the pieces for last 1 year, and I have seen how far it can change even my day-to-day life, or my the way how I work. Right. So I used to write a lot of stories and a lot of what you call like how I interact and what I do, and even my emails. Right. I don't have that option of summarizing my emails and things like that. So it's all the complete shift. Whatever it's kind of a sophistication what you got in this last 1 year, and definitely the future of AI is agents. Like maybe in next this 1 year, you'll see a lot of order model improvements in models, and there will be specific models, and there will be agents who will be ruling this 1 year. So with the agents, I see a lot of new things can be invented, like autonomous operations and autonomous cloud. Even we talked about cloud engineering and cloud operation. Right? So
Mhm.
those can be autonomous in future with the help of agents. So that's how I see AI. It's not totally hyped, and it's completely worth trying it and then building it or living it with AI.
If I'm not super in tune to AI, or if I've been, maybe I'm a traditional Azure guy, so doing like identity management, can you take a sec just to explain like what an agent is? What does that mean?
Yeah, sure, definitely. A good question. So, yeah, most of people they have the similar questions whomever I have interacted so far. So, starting from day one, you saw ChatGPT and you asked it some question, and it answered. So, with its own knowledge, like whatever it has got, be it internet knowledge or anything, so it answered. You got the answers back. But then as a next stage, what you said is, okay, so I have my own data. Okay, let me ground the data, and then you give me my data related results. So I say like I have this customers orders and this, and if someone asks me like how many customers ordered this product, so use my data and then give the results in a pretty nice format, maybe in a graph or structured format, or you want it in a written user friendly readable format. So it gave you those things, and we called it as RAG. So that's what we have seen. And then last 3 months of 2024, it's when agent got introduced. So agent is something which can do some task on your behalf. So if there, if for example, I can say it in a developer way, right? Like you have been, if there is a production issue and till date, after the fact, and with the help of agent, it can identify you before the fact, like when warning starts, because every error, it starts with a warning. So even when it starts from the warning, it can take those warnings without ignoring those warnings. It can read those, and then it can search across internet using Bing search or any other tools, whatever we provide it. And using those tools, it can find some answers, and it can tell like how it's going to impact your system. And based on that, it can do some groundwork. It can do further more research on the problem, and then it can identify and give you a couple of solutions with different stages. Maybe I have to restart my app, I have to clear my storage, or I have to do this, or these are the steps, and it will be sent to you in the midnight when you're sleeping. And then you just say, read through that, and then click this one button, and it will go do all the steps on your behalf. It should go try executing the first step, second step, and third step, and finally it keeps watching for the stability. And once it finds stable, and it comes back and tell you like, oh, my system, your system is now stable. Now I'll continue to monitor, and I'll let you know if you find anything. So this is the power of agents, what it can do in a developer term. But in business terminology, what I see agent as, right? Agents are something which can help your, so far, like your customer support, or someone, like for example, a medical business on a medicine side. If you have an insurance provider where you have to call each and every provider and ask the customer information, and there is someone who is doing that, and that may be a typo or something can happen, and it has to happen, and they have to wait in the line. For those types of purposes, you can deploy an agent there, and agent can make a call on behalf, and using some real time own models or anything, it can talk to the end customer, and then can get some values out of it, and then it can keep your update your system. So these types of things agents can do. So these examples, I think with these two examples, I think you can now relate agent to the real world scenarios, like where all you can apply agents, and how it can help, and what extent it can go, right? It can even write code, and then using code executor, it can even write code and then execute and do fantastic things for you.
That's super exciting. I remember, I think it was Google 3 or 4 years ago, they showed with their assistant, like, you could ask their version of, like, an Alexa. I think it's called a Home or a Nest, or I forget what they call it now, where you say, "Hey, go call this restaurant and make a reservation for me." Alright, so what it would do is then, look up the restaurant, call it, try to place a reservation at the time range that you gave it for the amount of people, and then hang up, and then it sends you, like, an email confirmation that, like, "Oh, hey." So you're saying that we can start building those agents ourselves. We don't have to be Google. We don't have to be Microsoft. We can be any XYZ company, and I can start building those autonomous agents.
Yeah, so those autonomous agents needs to be backed by a model. So it needs to be either GPT-4o model or GPT-1 model, which suits for that particular task, right? So
Mhm.
because these agents needs the power of model to go get the details, and then do some massage around it, and then get the right thing out. So we definitely need a model. And what I would see that as a single agent system, and here I see a multi-agent system where you can converse, the agents can converse within each other, and then say, hey, your result is this, and I got this result, and let's both work on these two results, and then give something solid for this problem, or give a solid solution. So this is a multi-agent system, and there are several frameworks available, and I don't think you can directly deploy, because these agents, they need to have some framework to orchestrate or do something, like maybe a group chat or a sequence chat, or what type of chat it is. Those orchestrations can be done using a framework. We normally use Autogen or semantic kernel. There are several frameworks out there, but I would strongly recommend these two.
Yeah, I think AutoGen and Semantic Kernel are both backed by Microsoft. I've heard of LangChain before.
Yeah.
I don't know. With
Core
Semantic Kernel,
AI, I think Crew AI or something. I forgot. So
yeah,
I explored that long time back, but with latest advancements of AutoGen, I'm now with some
you don't
AGI.
care anymore.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I heard that too. When I think Semantic Kernel now supports Python, right? if I remember right.
I think yes, it now supports Python. So I have seen with C Sharp as like
Mhm.
you do, but I have seen with Python. So yeah,
That's what I heard people freak out because LangChain used to be, I think it was a Python only, and that used to be the, I think it now supports more languages as well, but that was the big thing of when semantic kernel now supports Python, C Sharp, and Java. I saw some people who really love LangChain start to be like, "Ooh, maybe this, like, semantic kernel is backed by Microsoft. It's open source," but and LangChain was kind of a little independent thing of, is this going to be taken over? Because now there's money behind semantic kernel to continue to improve it, make it better, and if adoption's high enough. Because what I've noticed personally is a lot of the first party tools in Microsoft support other Microsoft backed like open source libraries, like the Azure OpenAI SDK, for example, in C Sharp is amazing. And like, obviously it was ported to .NET first, then Java, and like all these other languages are coming, but say .NET and C Sharp seem to be the first place that a lot of these things are landing. Uh,
correct.
and then Python as well, just because Python is your traditional data scientist kind of
And
background.
machine language kind of stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's going to be here around. Yeah.
So I've seen those two like really. So it's like if you're going to be in Azure and use Azure Tech, Python and C Sharp seems to be the two biggest people they're focusing on. And a lot of even preview features I've seen seems to be Python is the first language, and then C Sharp is catching up along with Java. Just kind of depends, but Python seems to be taking the cake on a lot of things.
Yeah, you're
Um,
right. Yes.
when it comes to building a model or an agent, do you have any sort of resources or things we can point listeners to? Say, if I want to build that uh, chat bot we just talked about, right? Like, I saw announcements for Chat GPT of real time, voice. I've seen ChatGPT can integrate in Azure OpenAI. How do I get started to even start building like an agent or an agent flow? Oh,
Yeah, the very first point, what I would say is first kind of understand about the list of large language models and which are the SLMs, like small language models, maybe a Pi 4 or Pi 4 has got now reasoning. So you can read all my blogs on Medium. So that has got a lot of details about how or which model to choose. And first you decide on the models and which model works best for you. And
mhm,
the next thing is go for the right place, right, where you can run your models of like how secure and without any, like for example, if you have your data on SQL, or if you have your data on storage blob, and those are be it structured or non-structured, like you have your data on Azure, and it's always worth using Azure's OpenAI model, and using that Azure OpenAI model, and you establish a foundry, so where you can interconnect with all those services or resources that's available next to you, and so you have that setup ready. And once you are done with that, maybe you need a little bit of learning on about agents. Like it's just very simple, but you need to know all those tools and capabilities what it has got. For example, if you choose Autogen itself, right? Autogen has got multiple types of framework or multiple types of ways how you can make this agent work, right? For example, a single agent can help you solve your problem. You don't need to have multiple agents in that case. And if you need an agent, if your use case needs group of sequence of tasks, right? I have to do this, do that, do this, do that. Next step by step sequence, then you may need to have a different way of building this agents. And if you need to be a conversable agent, like you give a task simultaneously to different agents, and then each agent go do some research and then come back and converse each other and then try to find which is best, then you have to use group chat. Or so there are several other types, like you can work with files, you can so many other things. I think I remember seeing a YouTube video where a person, I forgot his name, he teaches all about Autogen and all these things whatever I'm discussing about, right? So I think
mhm.
there is one. And also there are documents available. Autogen is again a research kind of framework, so there are so many stuffs available for Autogen, so you can go read through that. So if not Autogen, if you want just a simple way of implementing it, then choose a semantic kernel framework and get to know what framework can do. And just don't stick to the quick start. The quick start will be a very basic stuff. Like there will be a lot of other capabilities what it can do. So understand all about the framework and make use of that framework. And there are a lot of guides available to how to use this framework. And if not, you can raise GitHub issues and make sure that if you have something and that is not already available and you want someone to work on it, or you create a GitHub issue so that someone can help you fix the problem or can enhance the feature itself. So those are the ways how you will start with agents. And once
Mhm.
you start with agents, there are so many other stuff like code executor and plenty of stuff which can help you, like Bing search tool. Like you wanted to go internet and then search something, then Bing search, or you call function calling is available where you can call your set of functions which is out there. So these are the things. There are so many other things available. So go through each and every features that's available, that's out there, and then make the best one which suits your use case, and then go from there.
So, I'm gonna say, as an expert, if I'm getting started, should I start with AutoGen since it has the wider breadth of if I need to go down the path of a group chat or multi-agent, I can? Or would you recommend starting with semantic kernel and then using that until I start hitting some of the roadblocks? Like, kind of what would be your recommendation of where to get started?
Yeah, I personally started with Autogen. So, but still, that's a research framework, right? The framework is meant for some research, so it can undergo certain changes, and you will see very often updates and non-stable versions. Maybe I don't know, but so I always, if you are looking for something to production grade, then they'll you may find the versions of latest table and other stuff. So always make use of semantic kernel is what I would recommend if you are choosing a production grade. But if you wanted to do some research around like what it is, and if you wanted to build something new which is not available with semantic kernel, then I would say go for Autogen.
Okay, so AutoGen might be a little bit more unstable considering it's a kind of a research framework, but it also might have the more cutting edge features before they
Yep.
get to semantic kernel. So, if you're using like an internal tool, or if you're just trying to do some of the cutting edge stuff, you might be more apt to go to AutoGen, and then semantic kernel's kind of your more. I'm trying to think of a good analogy in tech. I don't have one off the top of my head, but more maybe tried and true or robust from a productionizing standpoint. Semantic kernel might be a little bit more where you want to be for putting it out in front of actual end users. Is that kind
Yeah.
of your guidance? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would say. And I won't say Autogen is unstable, but you won't get a latest stable guaranteed version of, because it's kind of a it's getting updated every minute, right? Because you can always use Autogen, but because I developed a Autogen solution and I still run with certain versions of Python and everything, my system doesn't change in my local,
Mhm.
which is without my control, it won't change. So I use Autogen, and the same code or the same framework or whatever I set up 3 months back, I'm still using the same code, and I'm using it for my personal demos and everything. But that works fantastically fine. So I don't say it's unstable, but you will see a lot of changes happening with Autogen very frequently. But with semantic kernel, it's kind of what you call uh,
Stable or
stable.
not
Yeah.
stable. Maybe there's SLAs around it. Maybe is a
Yes.
better way of putting it.
Yep, yep. I
Um,
would say, yeah. Yeah, for production, and then you'll get support and other things. Even
mhm.
Autogen, you have Discord channel and other things where people respond pretty quick. But if you want something which is like more, what I would say, organic way of, or whichever, what suits that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm looking right now. AutoGen's repo was last updated 2 hours ago. So
Yeah.
as of the recording of this podcast, 2 hours prior, somebody merged a fix into main. So I would say it definitely seems very active, which could be good or bad. The good part is if you have a feature request, it seems like it's super active and moving. So maybe they'll be quicker to get to it and try it out. There's always that double-edged sword, right, of the active repository versus, and to your point, you can always just peg your versions or just say, we're not gonna move to the next major release and your stuff will probably work it forever as it is. One example I've seen, even just with the Azure OpenAI API, they've drastically changed, and maybe drastically isn't the right word, but they changed the payload property names. So a request that I made in this version doesn't work in that version now. And it wasn't a huge change, but it was a breaking change. And part of that is I was using preview APIs, which is just, something you have to be aware of when you use stuff that's maybe in preview or if you're always on the latest and greatest. But yeah, I think with the way AI is going, AutoGen seems like a fun tool to use. I've gone the other way. I started with just the SDKs. So using a lot of the chat with your data SDKs. Well, first started with the chat with your data, just REST API. So built out my own kind of SDK. Now I'm using some of the SDKs, moving to semantic kernel, just because that seems like the next step of migrating up to like doing broader and broader things. And I haven't really gotten into AutoGen a ton,
Mhm.
but that's kind of next on my bucket list is
Mm.
how
Yeah,
do we
AutoGen
start
is
getting
something
into
very
things?
interesting. You should try for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, when
Uh,
I started with AutoGen, so I like that a lot. So
mhm.
I always go with that first instead of any other SDKs like LangChain or True AI. Or,
I've also tried to go to the ones with the most help docs or the examples because, like you said, examples I like to accelerate my learning and then start branching off of them. I feel like if I'm just left with technical documentation, sometimes that gets frustrating to me of like I could probably piece all this together, but it's just so much easier to see somebody use it in action, but oh, that's how that works. And it's like, okay, here's where my pieces go and then okay, I'm going to add pieces to this or, man, it'd be great if it could do this and then you read the thing of like just implementing one thing instead of seeing how the whole framework works just by reading technical documentation. That's been my hesitation with technology in general, not either of these techs in particular,
Mhm.
but yeah, that I think the I've seen a lot of AutoGen talks. Microsoft does have Discords as well for AI. There's an AI specific one and an Azure one, and they post little rooms, and I see AutoGen and semantic kernel ones every now and again, and they've been really cool to watch and go through.
Yeah.
Uh, guess, do you have what is the coolest thing you've built with AI to date without, giving away anything or help somebody build? What are other things that AI could potentially do to help maybe move an organization forward? Or I know you've talked about a few, but have you seen any that you've been like, wow, that's really unique and cool?
Yeah, so I have seen in many places AI is doing fantastic stuff. There are few examples. There are few which I got fascinated about is like on retail world, right? Like how other industries like retail industries, how they see shopping experience is going to be, right? Where they have using this latest models like Trellis and other models where you can convert your 2D image to a 3D model, and you can see, for example, you pick a bread packet and then when you are at store, you just see a bread packet and then you turn it around to see all the directions of it and then get a complete feel, right? Instead of that, this model can show you a complete 3D picture of from just one view. It can convert into a 3D model and improve your shopping experience. Like you get to feel uh, like you are in the store, right? Just being online, you get to that feeling. So that one thing which I see as biggest thing what it going to change, like. And apart from that, there are so many other things, which the one thing is how the way the naturally it responds, right? One day I was using Canva or other tool for editing my own Instagram reel, and how I just give it some text like this is what I'm going to do and this is what I need. And finally the end solution what I saw is it took my text and then it created a complete reel with me, a reel for me with the music and which is best, and you can choose this background or you can do all this. So these are the small things what I see. And apart from that, especially the office copilots and other things, right? You don't want to sit read through the complete mail chain, so that's going to take you at least an half a day time to know understand everything. Today you just click a simple button and then it gives you. And especially the teams summarization after you don't have to worry like you are in another meeting and you don't have to worry like what's going on in this meeting. So you just have this recording and then if they send you the summary of what's been discussed and where your name was called. So that's all fantastic things what I really see.
Yeah, I really like that, especially in teams. The transcription or the summarization of meetings has been Awesome. Because I think the worst thing of a meeting is when people aren't really paying attention and then somebody calls on them and they're like, wait, what's going on? Or if you missed a meeting and like people feel like they need to reschedule it, now you can just record it and get a high level summary. And then the transcription also then gives you the breakpoints that you can click back to. So you could be like, oh, my name was called at, 11:23 in this meeting. I'm going to click on that. And then it goes to the recording of right there. So you have the summary before you jump in. So you have some context. And then you can be like, okay, this is the part that applies to me. Okay, makes sense. And you then watch that 2 minute of that meeting instead of skimming through maybe a 30-minute hour meeting that,
Mhm.
maybe you're only talked about for 2 minutes. And I've really enjoyed that. It's really cool to get all that kind of features going on. So I've also really loved, I don't know what it's called now. It used to be called the enterprise chat, but the being able to chat with like your corporate documents. So like it used to be called even Bing Chat, but now I think they've renamed it. There's an enterprise part that's in preview that you can go ahead and use. And that's been really cool. So for example, because I'm a consultant, we're not supposed to work when the client's closed. So I just asked the chat, is like, hey, what's my client's corporate holidays for 2025? Because we just flipped the calendar year and it went and searched somewhere that I have access to through SharePoint, but I wouldn't have known where to look. And it
Mhm.
pulls down this nice PDF of here's the corporate holidays for 2025. And I'm like, that's amazing. I don't
Yeah.
know, how many people I would have had to message to go find that anyway and bother. And now it's just like, oh, I asked my little chat agent to go find it for me. It searched all the things I have access to and brought it back.
Yeah. That's M365 chat available. You can toggle between your work and web so that if you wanted to get work related information, then the work will do. And if you want the web related, so web is going to answer. So yeah, that's one fantastic thing what we have. Yeah. That too to the documents what you have access to. So it uses on behalf of access level so that whatever access level you have got, so that will be used for this to go get the details out. So which is one thing fantastic. Yeah.
Right. So if your organization is really good at SharePoint access and authentication authorization, that's just, it comes for free. So
Yep.
you then don't have to worry about data security, any of that sort of stuff, which is something that's always fun when you start talking AI of how big of a deal is it if, we throw everything in a singular index. If you're not supposed to see something that I can, you're then hoping your system prompt is good enough at rooting it out. It's like, if you're really worried about that data separation and segregation, you should probably use separate indexes.
Mm.
And then, that with AI search, then if you're going to use that tool, indexes is one of the big things that pushes you to the next price tier. And I do make the joke that you'll run out of money before you'll run out of index spacing because that's always the thing people come up with is, well, how much data can we hold? Like, there's tiers that hold terabytes, but they're going to
Okay.
cost you. I think the highest tier is like $6,000 a month. It
Yep.
might even be
Yep.
higher than that. But
Mm.
like, you're going to run out of budget before we run out of what Microsoft can give us.
Yeah, that
But yeah,
price came down a lot recently. So from day one, right? If you see, I
yeah,
think, yeah, there were posts from Pablo. I think he wrote like how it changed, how the price came down till now. So
and I think everything quadrupled in capacity for each price, if I remember right. So it's like your free tier got 4 times bigger, your basic tier got 4 times big. Like everything got bigger too. So not only did price come down, but they also 4x'd the capacity of everything. So I I even think it wasn't a super. It's a very expensive service at the surface level, just because like people are used to getting free tiers of stuff in the cloud,
mhm,
and there is a free tier, but and then the first tier usually isn't. I think the basic tier is what, $70 now.
mhm,
Like the cheapest app service is still like $10. So
yep.
I think people are just used to that knob turning, and you're talking like $5-10 a month. The knob for AI search is 0 to 70, and it's a little bit bigger of a knob turn, especially if you start talking about, uh, depending on how close you want your non-prod and prod environments to be potentially, then you're talking 70 times 3 or times 5, depending on what your structure looks like.
Mm.
So, but yeah, I agree. I've seen it. It's come down. The capacity of it all has risen a ton. So I don't think it's a huge issue. It's a lot better too than having to manage something like that on your own, because then you have to deploy like a Parquet instance or something to have your own index database and
Mhm.
deal with all that, which if you're just trying to do a chat with your data and get it out the door to see, does this even improve my business? I think that the
That matter.
investment in either
Yeah.
free tier or the next tier is cheaper than what it's gonna take for dev time to, get a Parquet instance out the door if you've never used, indexing software or anything like that before.
Mhm.
So, that's kinda where I've been, is just, "Hey, go use the off the shelf, and if you see it returns a bunch of money or, it's super profitable or, really is helping your use case, go invest more in semantic kernel, go invest more in AutoGen, go invest more in, Phi models because maybe you wanna do on-device stuff." Uh, That's kind of where I've been trying to guide people, is like, let's just do the easiest thing first and then proceed from there.
Yep.
But cool. Is there any last minute plugs or anything that where our listeners can keep up with you?
No, so I would recommend to follow my blogs. So to know more about AI, so I write all the latest stuff. So currently, I'm writing one for Trellis model, and usually I keep updated like whatever is coming out, maybe O1, O3 audio model and real time preview. I write everything about. So just watch for my blogs and then try to follow me if so to get all the latest updates as soon as I write one. All right. It's medium.com and AI with Naveen Krishnan. So yeah,
Perfect. I'll put those in the show notes too as well, so you can link through there and some of the other things we've talked about during this episode. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today on this episode of the podcast, and I hope you have a good weekend.
thanks, Alex.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, everybody.